My question is for Mr. Parker. Following OSHA's rebuke of the Supreme Court, the agency was forced to rescind its vaccine and testing emergency temporary standard. In its notice to rescind the ETS, however, the agency chose to keep the measure as a proposed rule, leaving the door open to yet another tyrannical vaccine mandate in the future. So, Mr. Parker, why are you keeping the vaccine mandate alive after OSHA's loss at the Supreme Court?
Thank you, Ranking Member. By operation of law, when an emergency temporary standard is issued, it functions as a proposed rule. The Supreme Court ruled that the emergency temporary standard, the vaccine and testing rule, was not likely to prevail on the merits in the lower court. And so we withdrew that rule, but as a matter of law, the proposed rule continues to be in place, not unlike other proposed rules that we've had on the regulatory agenda for a long time. We don't have any plans to move forward with a vaccine and testing rule, but that's just a function of how at this time, and we haven't really given it a lot of consideration because it was just a function of how the law works that it continues to be in place.
So I guess just to follow up, should employers and workers be concerned that there may be another ill-advised or illegal vaccine mandate promulgated from the agency in the future, or is that pretty much dead?
No, we don't have any plans to move forward on a vaccine.
Okay. Mr. Parker, prior to President Biden taking office, OSHA had rarely used its emergency rulemaking authority, which allows the agency to bypass critical regulatory safeguards like soliciting public comment. Now, OSHA has issued 2 emergency temporary standards in President Biden's first year in office, the vaccine mandate and the healthcare industry ETS. Should the regulated community expect this to be standard operating procedure at OSHA during the Biden administration?
I think, Ranking Member, you have to keep in mind the scale of the pandemic and what we were up against as a nation. More than 1 million people have died in this pandemic. It was a massive tragedy that required a massive emergency response. And both of those emergency rulemaking activities that you're referring to were directly related to COVID. We would address through the emergency rulemaking process emergencies where it's appropriate, but I don't think that you can extrapolate from this unprecedented scale of a pandemic that's the kind of thing that we're going to do on a constant basis, because it is a relatively high standard that we have to meet to issue.
Well, I would just, in that, do you believe it's important to give the regulated community the opportunity to weigh in on OSHA's regulations?
Oh, absolutely. And not only is it important for them, it's important for us because it allows us to make a better job.
Yeah, I would just say, I know we're all talking about the pandemic. We know that during the pandemic, when we had the first day of session, Speaker Pelosi had a COVID-19 booth set up on the House floor, so people that were positive for COVID-19 could come in and vote for her for speaker. Now, I don't know of any business that would have done that if they needed somebody to come into work, allowed them to come in knowing they were positive for COVID and having to go through the entire building to get to an area. So when people are talking about the pandemic and employers, right, I think they need to talk about the actions that have been taken by some of the Democrats in Washington, D.C. that didn't put the federal employees first and weren't concerned for their safety, yet they want to demonize the people for which we work, America's job creators and the people that go to work every day. I just wanted to make that point. And my last question, Mr. Parker, we've consistently heard committee Democrats demonize employers and question their commitment to ensuring that workers go home to their families safe and healthy every night. Based on my experience with employers in my district, and I know I worked in a factory, I know these statements that employers do not care about workplace safety is entirely wrong. So with that, what is OSHA doing to cooperatively work with employers to expand its compliance assistance efforts, which benefit employees by protecting them before an injury or illness can occur?
We're actively engaged in that work, working with small businesses. You know, we've requested significant funding in 23 to expand our compliance system.
Thank you. The gentleman's out of time. Thank you very much.